What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be about the Carabao Cup final, Manchester City versus Tottenham. Before we start, my book is out, so check it out. There's a link to it in the description below. Check out Keyframe as well. That's how I made the second half of this video. And just a reminder, all members get a free copy of my book, so a little more incentive to become a member as well as getting exclusive content. But let's get right into it. So when Manchester City were in possession, they went with their asymmetric back four, which saw Cancelo inverting some of the time. Fernandinho was the lone pivot, and they played against the 4-3-3 of Tottenham. When Cancelo would invert like he did much of the time, this would spark the other three defenders, including Kyle Walker, to become a back three in possession of the ball, which also saw Gundogan fade into the wide area a lot of the time, creating space for Phil Foden. This wasn't the only wide rotation though, but it's important to note the 3-2 shape of Manchester City as well as the 4-3-3 of Tottenham that tried to control the center three corridors and use the blind spot of the three central midfielders to block access between the lines. So when Cancelo would stay wide, this typically saw a different type of rotation, which saw Gundogan come deeper alongside Fernandinho, Sterling come narrow, and then create the space in the half space between the lines for Phil Foden outside of the three midfielders of Tottenham, and Cancelo now holding the width. Sometimes they would use double width with Sterling in the wide area, but primarily single width was their go-to. Now Tottenham in possession, they built from the back with Lloris, but often went direct to Kane, who would drop between the lines and look for a runner in behind like Heung-min Son. Now when they were in possession and they had established their structure, oftentimes we saw Harry Winks dropping to create the three-man build-up with Lo Celso, Moura, Kane, and Son, the advanced players between the lines, but Lo Celso would often come alongside Højbjerg to control Spurs in transition and give them a little bit more protection with the fullbacks creating the width. So now let's get into the keyframe aspect of the video. Now we're in keyframe looking at Manchester City in possession, and the first instance we're going to look at is Manchester City using double width with Cancelo and Sterling occupying the wide area. And as we see, Cancelo is still a little bit more narrow, but still in the wide area, with then Sterling creating the full width. And this sees Gundogan and Fernandinho as the double pivot in the central corridor, with Foden now coming more narrow into the half space, and we see him just outside of the three-man midfield of Tottenham, and we will see De Bruyne mirroring the position of Foden here in the right half space, so they have players occupying both half spaces between the lines. And what this did, would create a three-man wide structure for Manchester City, which is a lot their movement derived from these three players and how they rotated in and out of the half space and wide corridor to then progress the ball. And we start to see the Tottenham shape as well, the midfield shape and the front three. Son just a bit deeper here, and we'll see in other pictures that he's very much part of the front three rather than the midfield. The three midfielders control the space between the lines and the gaps between the defenders using their cover shadows and vertical and horizontal compactness to try and limit Man City's influence in this space between the lines. So Manchester City in possession again. Now we see Cancelo occupying single width as well as Kyle Walker using Mahrez and his partnership to create double width and creating asymmetry in their offensive structure. Again, Gundogan deeper with Fernandinho and Kevin De Bruyne also more advanced in the right half space. We see now the difference from this and the second picture is Sterling now goes between the lines to pin the defenders to then create space for Phil Foden, and if he's blocked by a cover shadow, Cancelo will be the free player to then progress around the outside of the Tottenham block. As we see here, we see clearly their 4-3-3 matching up against Manchester City, using these three players, midfielders, to have access to both half spaces and try and limit the access between the lines of a player if they were to use a false nine. And then we have our front three of Tottenham responsible for controlling the double pivot and pressing the first line of Manchester City. Now for the last example, we see Kyle Walker become part of the three-man build-up for Manchester City. Cancelo now is an inverted fullback with De Bruyne, Foden, Gundogan all between the lines, and when Cancelo would occupy this inverted role, this would create an overload in the half space of Gundogan and Phil Foden, allowing for more free and fluid movement between the lines, and it would allow these players to arrive at the ball in the blind spot of the midfield three of Tottenham. And we see our 4-3-3 mid block here from Tottenham defending against the Manchester City structure, and this would leave single width now for Mahrez and Sterling, creating more 1v1 situations in the wide area. So now for Tottenham in possession, they were very direct and they were limited on the ball, but their movement derived from Lloris at the back with the two central defenders alongside, and the width came from the fullbacks with their double pivot in the central corridor, and Serge Aurier just off the screen here as the right fullback. They often in the first half looked to play out from the back, but after a few ball recoveries from Manchester City and their 4-4-2, but it often looked like a 4-2-4 with their advanced wide midfielders. Then Tottenham would limit their playing out from the back and look for a more direct route to progress past Manchester City because of their limited access to the double pivot and the space between the lines. And as we see here, one more picture of their build-up shape with the two defenders alongside the goalkeeper Lloris, and when they were able to play into these wide positions, oftentimes the center back would be left by himself to then progress the ball. The center back would be left by himself to progress the ball further forward via dribbling, and then have to play a long vertical pass to Kane, checking between the lines, or in behind to a player like Son or Lucas Moura running in behind. And that's the analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.